Watching the breaking on CNN News 18 with me, Sakshi Singh Littori. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll be walking you through all the top headlines from the nation and across the globe. At the top of this segment, some breaking news now coming in straight from Bangladesh. This is extremely shocking. As per a Bangladesh minority organization, we are learning that at least 49 teachers belonging to minority communities residing there were forced to resign across the country after the fall of Sheikh Hasina-led government amid a student-led people's uprising on August 5th. In addition, minority teachers across the country have been physically assaulted. Awami League has now reacted to these resignations, saying that the mob leaders have marked the institutionalization of intolerance among students a shot in the arm for toxic narratives. We'll bring you more details with regards to what exactly is happening there in the neighborhood, how exactly Indians are going to be looking at this point of time. But a massive outcry for the protections of minorities residing over there. This development is going to be, in addition to that, demanding justice for the atrocities happening against the Hindus as well as rest of the minorities residing over there. This comes amid a wave of targeted attacks on minorities residing in Bangladesh at this point of time. All of us, the Indian authorities, in fact, a lot of people on social media are only demanding one thing: justice being served to the minorities in Bangladesh, as well as a stable government looking at equal rights for everybody in Bangladesh at this point of time. In fact, as per a Bangladesh minority organization, at least 49 teachers recently belonging to minority communities were forced to resign across the country after the fall of Sheikh Hasina-led government amid a student-led people's uprising that their nation witnessed on August 5th. We have our senior editor Pallavi Ghosh joining us on the broadcast. Pallavi, as we said before, that this comes amid the wave of targeting attacks on the Hindus as well as rest of the minority communities residing in Bangladesh. It's going to add on to the outcry for justice for them.
Absolutely. In fact, actually, when I was there in Dhaka and I had gone to Dhaka University, that very day itself, there was a head of the physics department, again a Hindu teacher, and you saw students surrounding her. They were pouring water on her and essentially pressurizing her to quit, which she finally did. So 49 is a huge official figure really coming in from the interim government of Bangladesh, and this actually confirms the worst fears of many who are talking about systematic targeting of the Hindu community in Bangladesh. So there are two factors which are at play here. One, of course, is the religious factor, which is the Hindus versus the Muslims, especially with the Jamatis leaders being released from jail. This is something which many people are worried about. They would be rabid, they would be fascist, and they would perhaps try to impose the conservative practices which Bangladesh had not really seen. It's been quite a pretty much an open society. Second, the perception is that many of these teachers in the universities are actually perceived to be close to Sheikh Hasina. I also remember that at the press club of Dhaka, there was this huge protest which are organized by hundreds of people and many of them being the journalists as well as teachers, who were demanding that there should be what they call the cleansing of universities and colleges. Those who were Hindus, those who were perceived to be close to Sheikh Hasina regime should actually be asked to step down. I think these numbers are expected to increase in the next couple of days, where possibly Bangladesh is going to inch closer and closer to elections.
That's extremely sad, Pallavi, because Prime Minister Modi himself also tried requesting the government in Bangladesh at this point of time to sort of bring back the normalcy in their country. Mohammad Yunus also sort of promised. He also met with the representative of Hindu and other minority community leaders over there, promised that he is going to do everything in his control, but looks like nothing is actually happening there on the ground.
Prime Minister had a brief conversation with the interim government chief, Mohammad Yunus, and while he stressed on the fact that India and Bangladesh, given the history and legacy, need to work together despite the change of regime, it's the minorities, particularly the Hindus, who need to be protected. In fact, Mohammad Yunus also himself tried to send out this message at the local level to every of the stakeholders that please do not have these attacks on the minorities. I remember he made a visit to most of the Hindu temples, the Adi Dhakeshwari temple, the biggest of them in Dhaka. On Janmashtami Day, a procession was carried out peacefully on the streets of Dhaka, but every time stories of systematic targeting of Hindu teachers, students, hostels starts coming up, the concerns are very, very valid, especially in India and among the Hindu community in Bangladesh. There are around 2 crores Hindus in entire of Bangladesh, and they are naturally worried. We only hear stories about Dhaka, but if you go into the interiors or smaller areas like Chittagong, if you go into into areas like, say, Khulna. Over there are stories which don't even come out, Sakshi, and this is a concern which is being raised by the UN team, which is expected to visit Dhaka anytime soon, and of course by the Indian government.
Absolutely. Pallavi, please stay on with us. We have Strategic Affairs Analyst Sushant Sareen also joining us on the broadcast. Sushant, thank you so much for joining us. How do you look at it? Our colleague said that 49 is a huge number, and in fact, we are expecting this number to only grow even more.
Yes, there's a kind of a purge taking place. Anybody who's identified with the earlier regime is being hunted down, hounded. Their properties are being looted, their businesses are being looted, they're being sacked from jobs, and of course, anybody who's in the service of government is going to be targeted. And if you're from a minority community, then even more. And this is notwithstanding all the spin that is put by apologists of Bangladesh, not just in Bangladesh but in India, or Bangladeshi origin professors who are peddling all kinds of nonsensical, data which doesn't stand up to any scrutiny, and peddling fake news, or for that matter, international NGOs and international newspapers which are doing the same thing. We've seen the CNN peddle their own narrative just a couple of days back. So yes, that kind of stuff is happening, but that does not distract you from, or should not distract you from, the kind of activities that are taking place on not just political lines but also communal lines. Now, politically, there would be some kind of a pushback from the people who've taken over against the previous regime, some kind of reprisals, but the targeting and deliberate targeting of minority community is, of course, a matter of serious concern. But we've seen that while the Indian Prime Minister raised it in his conversation with the American President, the Americans did not prioritize that, which is quite clear from the readout which they gave of the conversation. They just pressed on issues which are of importance to them and simply ignored the plight of minorities in Bangladesh as though it doesn't matter. They are not human. They're some kind of subhumans whose lives and properties is not important. You won't catch the Americans or anybody else doing the same thing, if it was a Christian community or some other community. But I suppose when it comes to Hindus, there are some kind of untermensch, lesser beings, you can carry out these kind of pogroms against them and get away with it. And there'll be apologists within India and outside India who'll act as though nothing is happening. So that's the kind of thing we are facing now.
Absolutely. It's very interesting that you mentioned US's intervention in this particular topic, Sushant, because US is very quick to judge India and in fact advocate us when it comes to the matter that we are sharing with Canada at this point of time. But if we were to look at the kind of relationship at this given point of time with Bangladesh that we are sharing, India has kept their stance very clear that, we are looking forward to a stable government in Bangladesh and also the protection of minorities residing over there. As a strategic affairs analyst, what do you suggest India should be doing in order to protect the Hindus residing in our neighborhood?
Look, I think the government in India is making its position very clear. I would imagine that they can do it a little more emphatically, but I think in their own wisdom they've decided that they're going to play it cool. But I think the message has gone across that this is an issue that will be raised with the Bangladeshis. Just as the Bangladeshis, for example, even under Sheikh Hasina, expressed their displeasure when we passed the CAA law. They expressed their displeasure on that. I don't see any reason why we should pull our punches when it comes to the protection of minorities in Bangladesh, because it has a direct fallout on us. Most of the exodus takes place into India. It creates all kinds of problems for India, not just communal problems, but also economic problems it causes. So I think we need to raise this issue far more emphatically than we have been. And there are very strong leverages that India has over Bangladesh, and there needs to be some kind of flexing when it comes to issues of critical importance. So I'm sure we're doing it quietly. We don't make much of a public demonstration about it, which is what it should be.
Right.
But if things do not start improving or our concerns do not start getting addressed, then a little bit of public diplomacy on this kind of a thing would go some distance in addressing our concerns. So one is that, of course, but I think there also needs to be other instrumentalities that the government needs to forge and put into place to ensure that Indian interests are not neglected in Bangladesh.
Absolutely. So Shant, thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18 and sharing your perspective across. Would like to thank Pallavi also for sharing all of those inputs with our viewers.